This podcast is a work of historical interpretation. While we strive for accuracy, some aspects of history are open to interpretation and debate. Thank you for listening. Welcome back to Timetellers, the podcast that brings history to life. I'm your host, Renee, and we have... Is he going to introduce himself?
I never do.
That's Dan. Today, we're diving deep into two pivotal nuclear incidents that changed how we view nuclear energy.
Fukushima and... What's that one that Homer Simpson works at?
No. This would be the Chernobyl disaster and the 3 Mile Island accident.
Oh, you mean the one that they made after that TV show?
No, the TV show is named after it. Wait.
Oh.
Which TV show are we talking about?
Chernobyl.
Okay.
You know, the Netflix... Was that Netflix?
Yes. So, join us as we explore these catastrophic events, their scientific causes, the political turmoil surrounding them, and their aftermaths, and the lasting impacts on the modern world.
Yay.
Dan didn't really want to do this episode.
I just felt this episode was severely lacking in a few departments.
Well, it's 14 pages of notes, so I couldn't include... What did you want to include?
Fukushima. Which is, you know, how the cleanup effort after these events should be handled as opposed to how they were.
So I have recently read part of Midnight in Chernobyl by Adam Higginsbotham, and it is a very good book. I have not gotten through it because it is very wordy and goes into a lot of detail, and I just got distracted with other books. But from what I've read, Midnight in Chernobyl by Adam Higginsbotham is a good choice for anybody out there looking for a book to read about the Chernobyl disaster. Let's start with Chernobyl. And this is another April thing.
April Fools.
No. On April 26, 1986, near Pripyat, Ukraine, which was part of the then Soviet Union, the world experienced its most devastating nuclear disaster. The catastrophic... I said it right the first time! The catastrophic... Nope, see, now I can't say it. I don't know how to say it. The incident occurred at approximately 1:23 a.m. during reactor number 4's poorly executed safety test. Due to critical design flaws, particularly in the RBMK, which stands for Reactor Bolshoi... Well, I'm not going to say that, actually. I'm going to start that paragraph. I can't pronounce it. Due to critical design flaws, particularly in the RBMK, which translates to a high-powered channel-type reactor, the reactor's use of graphite moderators...
What's it without the translation?
Not happening.
You don't speak Russian?
No. Such as disabling key safety systems and running the reactor at dangerously low power. The reactor underwent a violent surge in power known scientifically as a power excursion.
Well, why didn't Godzilla just show up and absorb it all?
That would have been convenient.
Yeah. Stupid lizard, never there when you wanted to. See?
A power excursion in nuclear reactors refers to a sudden, rapid, and uncontrolled increase in reactor power levels, often due to an unexpected surge in the rate of nuclear fission. Okay, how a power excursion occurs, just to give a little background information that I can provide because I am far from an expert. The reaction rate in a nuclear reactor depends on neutron activity. The reactor becomes increasingly reactive if neutrons production surpasses neutron absorption and leakage.
Can you tell our listeners what a neutron is?
If this reactivity goes uncontrolled due to human error, equipment failure, improper design, or procedural mistakes, the nuclear chain reaction accelerates rapidly. The sudden surge in power output can quickly surpass the reactor's design capacity, causing structural damage, fuel meltdown, explosions, or radioactive releases.
And once again, what's a neutron?
You tell the world what a neutron is. I teach English and history. Social studies. I do not teach science.
Particle with no charge.
Thank you.
Neutron. Neutral.
Oh, that actually makes sense. I may have actually known that from, like, elementary school.
Wow.
This surge caused...
And I'm the music guy, not the science guy.
What are your degrees in again?
Music.
Okay. This surge caused a massive explosion, instantly killing 2 workers and releasing vast amounts of radioactive materials into the atmosphere.
Oh, and humanities. You forgot about that one. And music.
Okay. In the immediate aftermath, radioactive fallout contaminated large parts of Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia, and even drifted across much of Europe. Fallout continued to spread significantly, impacting Scandinavia, particularly Sweden, Finland, and Norway, which first detected abnormal radiation levels and alerted the international communities. Countries such as Poland, Germany, Austria, Romania, Hungary, and the former Yugoslavia experienced measurable radioactive contamination. Trace amounts of radioactive isotopes were also detected with higher deposits in mountainous regions such as Scotland, Wales, parts of France, and Italy. Some fallout reached Greece, Italy, and the Balkans, though levels were lower than in Northern Europe. So this affected all of Europe.
Yeah.
Although I don't see Spain on here.
You said Portugal.
No, I didn't.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, I said Poland.
Oh.
That's the only P, country.
No Portugal.
Nope. Which would be very strange if Portugal was affected, but not
That's
Spain.
why I thought you said Portugal.
Right.
I say, wait, so it somehow went around Spain.
It said no thank you to Spain. However...
So in other words, it missed most of southern Europe.
Yeah, but it did hit parts of Italy in the mountainous areas.
That's not southern.
That's
Switzerland.
No.
And Germany.
No.
Come on.
That is not... Italy goes into the Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah, I know, but I'm talking about
peninsula.
northern.
Fallout particulars...
You know, it's that big boot-looking country.
Particles. Yes, I know what Italy looks like.
Oh, okay.
Fallout
And
particles...
then there's Sicily down by the tip of the boot.
Which is in the Mediterranean Sea.
Yes. Well, and then also you have Vatican City right in the middle of it.
Yes.
And isn't that the world's smallest city?
Smallest country.
Smallest country and city.
Yeah. Fallout particles were detected as far away as Canada, Japan, and the United States, albeit at extremely low levels.
So wait, everywhere but South America and Antarctica?
And Africa. And most of Asia. Well, Japan's Asia.
Yeah. So how would it hit Japan but not hit any of the stands or Russia? Oh, wait, it was in Russia. But you know what I mean.
It did hit. Yeah, I mean, well, they might not have been able to test for it. Or they might not have tested at the right times. The winds could, I don't know.
What are you trying to say?
Following the Chernobyl disaster in 1986, about 116,000 people were evacuated from the immediate danger zone around the reactor. This evacuation primarily involved the town of Pripyat and the surrounding villages within 30 kilometers, which is a 19-mile radius, known today as the Chernobyl exclusion zone. So, in Pripyat, the population evacuated was approximately 49,000 residents, and that evacuation began around 36 hours after the explosion on the afternoon of April 27th, 1986. Residents were given minimal notice, only a few hours, and told the evacuation would be temporary.
They lied.
They lied.
Wait, the government lied?
I can't believe it. It's shocking.
I know. I mean, we're talking about Russia, I mean.
They were transported by buses and trucks carrying minimal belongings because they all thought they were coming back. They would not. Well, most of them would not. Over the following days and weeks, additional towns and villages within 30 kilometers, including the city of Chernobyl itself, were evacuated. This brought up because I found a couple different numbers, the 114,000 or 116,000 people.
Close enough.
Yeah, being evacuated by the end of May 1986. Between 1986 and 2000, about 220,000 people were displaced from contaminated areas in Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine. These later evacuations were from rural communities, towns, and villages in areas contaminated with longer-lasting radioisotopes like cesium-137. Where did they go, though? Because immediate evacuation, the residents were first relocated to towns like Slavitek, a newly built town for displaced worker, Kyiv, and surrounding cities, the villages such as, I'm going to butcher these names, I'm so sorry, Ivankiv, Polisk, Borodenka, and other places farther away from the contamination zone.
You better start brushing up on your Russian.
I know. Oh, long-term resettlements. The evacuated population was spread widely, with many relocating permanently to Kyiv, Chernobyl, Zhytomyr, and other Ukrainian cities, as well as parts of Belarus and Russia. And again, we have the built town of Slavitek, which was specially built to house the workers and their families after the disaster. And it became home to thousands of evacuees. And I do apologize for butchering all these names.
Do you?
I'm not good with, like, foreign language. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing Pripyat incorrectly, Pripyat incorrectly.
I don't know. I don't speak Russian.
But that city and dozens of surrounding villages remained abandoned and are considered unsafe for permanent habitation. They form, again, part of the Chernobyl exclusion zone, which is an area strictly restricted and largely devoid of human life, but open for limited visits under controlled conditions. Many evacuees never returned to their original homes, permanently settling elsewhere, not just in Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia, but immigrating internationally as well. The radiation released during the Chernobyl disaster in 1986 significantly impacted human health and wildlife, with effects ranging from acute illnesses to long-term genetic damage. Some of those immediate health effects were acute radiation syndrome. Around 134 emergency workers, which were named liquidators, received extremely high radiation doses. 28 of these workers died within a few months from the acute radiation syndrome. Symptoms included nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, skin burns, hair loss, internal bleeding, and then eventually death. Some long-term health effects was a thyroid cancer. There was a dramatic increase in thyroid cancer, particularly and unfortunately in children who drank milk contaminated by radioactive iodine-131.
So were the cows themselves contaminated, or did the milk just get contaminated?
I'm thinking probably both, depending on where, like, cattle were located and where, like, the ranches were.
So does that mean that it wasn't pasteurized then?
I'm not sure, to tell you the truth.
How
long has pasteurized milk been around? It's been around since
it's been around
the 80s.
I don't know if that would
milk
be
was
enough.
Being pasteurized in Ukraine during that time.
Well, and I also don't know if that would be enough to
I don't know
make it not radioactive.
Right. That seems highly suspect.
If any of you are milk experts and can let us know, please.
Yes. Or, deal with nuclear stuff and could let us know. Around 6,000 documented thyroid cancer cases were attributed directly to the disaster, primarily in Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. The spike appeared about 4 to 5 years after 1986. Other cancers increased, including leukemia, breast cancer, and lung cancer, primarily among cleanup workers. Statistically elevated cancer rates were found in affected populations, though causality is sometimes debated due to other lifestyles or environmental factors or record keeping. This was behind the Iron Wall. This is pre the fall of Berlin Wall. So how much accuracy the rest of the world was getting from the Soviet Union, even Now, I don't know. So, but there were higher incidences of miscarriages, premature births, and stillbirths. Again, scientific studies varied on definitive causality. Studies showed increased genetic mutation among children born in highly contaminated regions after the disaster. And of course, we have to talk a little bit about some mental health and psychological effects. Severe psychological impact, PTSD, anxiety disorders, depression, and chronic stress have been widely reported among both the evacuees and, of course, the cleanup workers and their families. Long-term fear and stigma associated with radiation exposure deeply affected evacuees' social lives and mental health. And this happened after the bombs were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, too. The stigma associated with the radiation exposure.
Huh?
Increased cases of cardiovascular disease, cataracts, immune system impairment, and chronic respiratory diseases have also been documented among affected populations. Let's talk about some effects on animal and plant life.
Yay.
Because there were animals there.
Radioactive bunnies?
There were probably bunnies. Isn't that a band? Anyways, within days and weeks, acute radiation killed many animals, including birds, small mammals like bunnies, insects, and plants, particularly those close to Reactor 4.
Speaking of bunnies this time of year, Easter bunnies are not gifts.
True. Ironically, though, my coworker just got a bunny, but that was more because she had to rescue it from a situation that was not ideal.
So is your coworker somebody that has bunnies or knows how to take care of them?
No, she's had plenty of other pets, and she is into research, and she didn't take it lightly.
Well, direct them towards me if they have any questions.
I can do that.
I kind of know about bunnies.
No, you do?
Yeah, yeah, I do. They're amazing.
Pine trees near the reactor absorbed massive radiation and turned reddish-brown, hence the nickname Red Forest. They died rapidly and were buried as radioactive waste. I wonder if there's photos of the Red Forest.
Probably.
Higher rates of genetic mutation, abnormal physical traits, and reproductive failures have been observed among the animals, birds, rodents, and insects, especially within most of the contamination zones. Some animals show deformalities, such as albinism, asymmetrical features, reduced fertility, and developmental abnormalities. Although they are, I don't know how much those developmental things would be because of the radiation or just the fact that there aren't humans there. Or both, right? Humans abandoning the exclusion zone ironically allowed wildlife populations to rebound and thrive, creating a large wildlife refuge with wolves, foxes, deer, bison, moose, wild horses, lynxes, and bears. While animal numbers increased, radiation-induced genetic and physiological stress remains detectable in their populations, such as elevated mutation rates, reduced lifespan, and increased tumor prevalence. Studies found significant decline in insect abundance and diversity within contamination zones. Bird populations showed reduced reproductive success, smaller brain sizes, and higher mortality rates closer to the reactor site, which is to be expected the closer you get to that reactor site. Initially, plants died or showed severe stunting due to radiation exposure. Over time, many plant species adapted or recolonized the area, though genetic damage persists in their populations. Forest regrowth in exclusion area is vigorous despite continued radiological contamination at the soil level. Nature's amazing. Just like, you ever see when it takes over like abandoned buildings and stuff?
Like that series Life After People?
Yes.
I remember that show. I mean, or Alice in Borderland to some extent. Can't wait for season 3 of that.
Politically, the Soviet government's initial secrecy dramatically worsened the crisis, delaying global awareness and increasing international criticism of Soviet transparency.
Shocker.
That seems like an oxymoron, Soviet transparency. And nuclear safety standards. Eventually, the Soviet Union had no choice but to acknowledge the magnitude of the disaster after radioactive particles were detected by Swedish monitoring stations hundreds of miles away. The monumental cleanup effort involved constructing a massive concrete and steel structure known as the sarcophagus to seal the reactor and contain further contamination. Over 500,000 quote-unquote liquidators, as mentioned before, worked tirelessly under dangerous conditions, facing significant radiation exposure to mitigate the disaster's impact. So this is almost like a lesson in how not to do this, according to Dan, which is why he wanted to include, I'm sorry, I just forgot the name. Fukushima. So if you want to compare and contrast here, by all means.
No, this is already going to be an hour long.
I told you. The immediate response. Firefighters arrived minutes after the explosion, unaware of the dangerous radiation. Many became seriously ill or died because they were responding to the fire because of the explosion. Like, firemen aren't going to be the first on the scene.
Generally, yes.
Yes.
Even in Russia.
Mm-hmm. Helicopters dropped sand, clay, lead, and boron into the reactor to stop radioactive particles from escaping. This was not very successful. Pilots also faced the hazardous radiation exposure. Radioactive debris landed on the reactor roof. Robots failed due to high radiation. They did try and send in robots first. Workers called, quote, biorobots went onto the roof to remove radioactive debris manually with shovels. They could only stay for about a minute at a time due to extreme radiation. And if you watch that show you were talking about on Netflix, I believe it is, they show that part significantly. Workers quickly built a large concrete and steel covered and called a sarcophagus around the destroyed reactor to temporarily contain the radiation. So those are like the first steps that they attempted.
And then somebody decided to attack it with drones not that long ago.
Yeah, that was smart.
Yeah.
Hundreds of miners dug tunnels around the reactor to install a cooling system to prevent further explosions.
Wait, child labor?
No. Miners like coal miners. These were adults, I think, mostly.
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure they were adults.
Hopefully.
They worked in not only normal harsh condition, because mining is not exactly, something for the soft or weak, but they also had high radiation to deal with. So workers removed contaminated soil, trees, vehicles, and buildings around the reactor. Over time, contaminated items were buried in unique concrete pits or abandoned in radiation zones. Just don't go in there, folks. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Cleanup workers were honored for bravery, but many felt forgotten or inadequately supported afterwards. But their efforts prevented the disaster from becoming even worse. The Chernobyl exclusion zone remains uninhabited mainly, although some former residents have returned, living there at their own risk. While radiation levels have decreased significantly, some areas remain dangerously radioactive. The site has, however, become a major tourist attraction.
Yeah.
Visited by thousands annually who explore under strict safety protocols. I mean, tourism is a lot of money. I don't know.
Yeah.
The new safe confinement structure, which was completed in 2016, now encloses the original sarcophagus, further preventing radiation leakage for at least another century, which is why I think they can now have, like, the tourist under a very strict controlled system. At least I hope it's strictly controlled. Okay, so that was Chernobyl. We're going to rewind 7 years earlier. So no longer in 1986, we're going to March 28th, so not quite April, but close, of 1979.
That's after Star Wars.
Yes, and we're not going to be in the Soviet Union. We're going to be in the United States.
In Pennsylvania?
In Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
At the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant near our capital, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Capital is not Philadelphia, as my students insisted today. That was a sad moment for me.
That means you failed as a teacher.
We have gone over this so many times.
Oh, so it was a typical day. Stop failing.
Really?
We all know the capital is St. Petersburg.
Oh my God. They're naming everything. Philly, Pittsburgh, Allentown. I was like, what?
I mean, Harrisburg really does make no sense because of its location. But it's literally the middle of nowhere.
Well, a lot of the state capital cities are in the middle of the city.
Well,
or middle of the state.
Albany's kind of middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So, unlike Chernobyl, the accident at 3 Mile Island did not result in a catastrophic explosion. Instead, it was characterized by a partial reactor meltdown caused by equipment malfunction, design flaws, and human error. Specifically, a cooling system malfunction, which led to overheating, particularly melting the reactor core. So this all started around 4 a.m. on March 28th. There was a mechanical failure occurring in the secondary cooling system, which caused pumps to stop working. Without that cooling, heat in the reactor increased quickly. It's never good.
True.
The reactor automatically shut down, or that's called scrammed, and heat continued to build inside and kept building. Pressure inside the reactor rose rapidly, triggering a safety valve to open and relieve pressure. The valve was supposed to close automatically after pressure dropped, but it stayed stuck open. With the valve open, coolant water poured in, unnoticed by plant operators, who thought the valve was closed due to misleading indicators. So a little technology confusion there.
I mean, it says what, open or closed.
Well, I'm assuming they mean that it said closed and it wasn't.
I don't know.
There's an episode like this on The West Wing, one of the later seasons, when Santo is running for president, and there's a nuclear reaction similar. They based it on 3 Mile Island. But anyways, back to this story. Operators misunderstood the situation because indicators suggested everything was normal. They mistakenly reduced emergency cooling water flow, thinking there was too much water. So they reduced it when they needed to increase it. Because technology failed. Imagine that. Water levels dropped, exposing the reactor fuel rods. Without water to cool them, the fuel rods began overheating. High temperatures caused around half of the reactor core to melt and collapse into the reactor vessel. This melting process is called a partial meltdown. A small amount of radioactive gas escaped into the atmosphere due to venting. This release was limited and controlled, but still caused public fear. Yes, because you're literally putting radioactive gas into the atmosphere, which is what happened in the West Wing episode too.
Yeah.
Like I said, that episode was 100% based on 3 Mile Island.
A lot of TV episodes are based on something.
I think they were in Arizona or Nevada. I can't remember. But so let's talk about response and cleanup for the 3 Mile Island. It's a little bit different than Chernobyl. Officials declared a state of emergency. About 140,000 residents evacuated voluntarily, though official evacuation was never mandated. Engineers restored cooling and stopped further damage within days. Cleanup, however, took over a decade, costing around $1 billion.
That's it?
I mean, this is the late 70s. That is a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was no immediate deaths or injuries that occurred from this partial meltdown. However, public trust in nuclear power was severely shaken. I don't think there's quite the cover-up. I'm not saying there is none, but I don't think there's quite the secrecy that the Soviet Union tried to enforce during the Chernobyl disaster. Nuclear safety regulations in the U.S. became significantly stricter, so kind of a little silver lining there. And it could have been so much worse. Unlike the Soviet reactor, 3 Mile Island's reactor had a robust containment structure designed to withstand severe accidents like ahead of time. This containment successfully prevented any significant radioactive release into the environment. Again, there still was some release. While no fatalities resulted from 3 Mile Island, the accident significantly altered public perception of nuclear energy safety in America. Politically, the 3 Mile Island accident prompted swift, and it says transparent action, but this is the United States, so I would say at least mostly transparent action from the U.S. government, and significantly better than the Soviet Union's. This contrasted sharply with the Soviet response to Chernobyl. Public debates became intense, prompting stricter regulations, enhanced safety measures, and leading to a decades-long stagnation in the American nuclear power industry. Politicians at state and federal levels were initially confused and alarmed. Pennsylvania then-Governor Dick Thornburgh ordered a partial evacuation of pregnant women and young children from areas near the plant, reflecting cautious decision-making amidst uncertainty. But when you say let's evacuate the pregnant women and young children, that's gonna lead to, well, who are we all safe? Like, they're not safe, but we are? What, So I can see how that's
kind of like sinking ships.
Yeah, women and children first. Yeah. But sinking ships,
sexism,
at least you can see...
Sexism is only okay in certain instances. I see how it is.
But with sinking ships, at least you can see the problem. Like, you can see the ships going down. You can't necessarily see reactive particles in the atmosphere.
I mean, just because I wouldn't be able to see it doesn't mean you could.
Yes, because I have super-duper good eyesight. What?
At least you wear your glasses.
I do.
Mine live in my pocket.
So who was president at this time of the United States?
Was that Ford or Reagan at that point?
Neither.
Carter.
Mm-hmm.
I had to think of when that was.
Pre-Reagan, after Ford.
Yeah, that's what I was like, so, wait.
I
couldn't remember what years.
It was 1979, but
I mean, I couldn't remember when the...
Oh, okay. President Jimmy Carter, who had experience in nuclear engineering as a naval officer, visited the plant personally to assure the public that the situation was under control. Carter's visit was aimed to calm fears while demonstrating transparency and asserting that the federal government took the matter seriously. It's probably one of the few times where, usually I don't think it's a good idea for the president to go to a disaster zone because it's just going to take away from helping the other people there. But, I think by the time he got there, most of the evacuation was done. It wasn't an ongoing, flood or something that they're trying to rescue people from. But to me, it's yes, they should go, but they should go after the immediate help has been helped, that's needed.
Yeah.
So you don't want to cause a bigger problem by bringing you and all your entourage into the situation.
Yeah.
And that goes for governors, too. They might be able to get away with it a little bit more because they're not to that level where they're going to be bringing, but they might be able to help more from a stand back and direct traffic kind of thing. You do this, you do that kind of situation. Make sure the money's flowing and the resources are going where they need to go. The accident led directly to increased scrutiny of nuclear safety. Congress held hearings, demanded answers and reforms. Politicians pressed for improved oversight, more rigorous safety controls, and stricter regulations. As a result, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission was reorganized to improve oversight. And we see this time and time again. Disasters happen, and we have hearings, and sometimes we see a difference. Sometimes
we haven't had a nuclear one here in a while.
True. So maybe it worked?
Or it just might have something to do with the cutback on nuclear power.
Well, yeah. True.
Well, for now, I'm sure it'll be back soon.
Scientists were initially unsure about the severity and implications of the accident. The complexity of nuclear technology and unclear communication from plant operators made immediate scientific assessment challenging. They did quickly start studying the accident in depth. Many expressed the urgent need to better understand nuclear reactor safety and improve plant design and operations to prevent future accidents. Some scientists advocated for continued reliance on nuclear power with enhanced safeguards, while others warned about its inherent risk, demanding a transition to alternative energy sources. Of course, the public's reaction was overwhelmingly characterized by fear, anxiety, and confusion. There's also a pretty decent documentary on Netflix about this as well, but I can't remember what it's called.
I don't know.
It's not called 3 Mile Island, but that's going to bother me because I've definitely watched it.
There's that new series on Netflix I got to start maybe tonight. That Residency or whatever it is, the one where it's, what's his name, Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah, The Residence.
Yeah, The Residence, where it's like a murder in the White House or something.
Yes, I got to watch that.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to yet.
Same. I might have some free time tonight.
You might.
Because I don't feel like editing this tonight.
Oh, okay.
Not like it matters. I don't need to have it ready till 11 o'clock Monday night.
Okay. Mixed messages from authorities. So the transparency thing, I think they tried, but I think there was a lot of miscommunication and people sending out different messages, which can happen in a crisis, and that causes confusion. Yeah, so we have the mixed messages.
Chaos and confusion.
From authorities and plant officials, intensifying the panic.
From Not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy.
Many people evacuated voluntarily, far beyond the official recommended zones, driven by uncertainty over potential radiation exposure. Plus, I mean, the wind could change. Like, we don't control Mother Nature's direction. She sends the wind in. 3 Mile Island dramatically strengthened the anti-nuclear movement in the United States. Public opinion sharply shifted against nuclear power. Massive protests and demonstrations occurred nationwide, opposing atomic energy and demanding the shutdown of nuclear facilities. Before the accident, nuclear power was widely seen as safe and promising. However, after 3 Mile Island, confidence plummeted, leading to cancellations of new nuclear plant projects. The industry never fully recovered its previous momentum. And we still see that today. I mean, we don't see a lot of new nuclear facilities, or at least they're quiet about it.
Yeah.
So we had some safety enhancements after this, for some long-term changes and effects. New safety procedures, better emergency preparedness, and improved communication protocols became mandatory. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission significantly tightened standards, mandating more rigorous training and safety drills for nuclear operators. Improved containment systems, which I think really helped in this situation, was what they had in place, and more straightforward emergency procedures. 3 Mile Island profoundly impacted popular culture, intensifying the public skepticism and influencing books, movies, and media portrayal of atomic energy risk. The cleanup itself was painstaking and prolonged, costing roughly $1 billion over a decade, as I said earlier. The immediate cleanup, the reactor was stabilized by reducing pressure, temperature, and radiation, right? The emergency measures were implemented, including releasing hydrogen gas carefully from the containment to avoid Emergency measures were implemented, including releasing hydrogen gas carefully from the containment building to avoid more explosions. Well, actual explosions, because it didn't actually explode.
Congratulations, you can read.
I'm having problems.
We know.
Okay, so the formal cleanup phase began once the reactor was stabilized. Large amounts of radioactive gas and containment water were trapped inside the containment structure. Radioactive gases were filtered and vented in controlled ways. I don't know what those ways were. I'm not an expert. Containment water was slowly processed through sophisticated filtration and purification systems to remove radioactive particles. Decontaminated surfaces and equipment were scrubbed, dismantled, or covered with protective materials. Workers wore specialized protective gear, carried out the delicate hazardous process. And remember, this is 7 years before Chernobyl. The reactor core had partially melted. Approximately 45 to 50% of the core was damaged. A lengthy, risky operation was conducted remotely using robotic and specially designed tools due to extreme radiation levels. Workers used remote-controlled tools and underwater cameras to gradually remove about 150 tons of damaged radioactive fuel and debris from the reactor vessel, piece by piece. So their robots worked. I'm not sure why the Soviets didn't. So robots and remote-controlled cranes played a critical role because radiation levels were too high for humans to operate safely near the reactor core. Technology developed for the cleanup was innovative at the time, establishing new standards for remote operations in radioactive environments. There does, if you watch, if I can remember the stupid episode's name, there was some whistleblowing when it came to the cleanup. There's some conspiracy about that whole involvement and the transparency that was the cleanup and how well it was done. And I think that's part of the reason it took so long, the decade long. Today, 3 Mile Island's damaged reactor remains permanently shut down, with the site gradually being decommissioned. The area around 3 Mile Island is safe and inhabited, and the plant itself has become a site for education about nuclear safety. However, the operational reactor at the facility was shut down permanently in 2019 due to economic factors. The stacks are still visible, I believe. At least at the time of the stupid documentary that I can't remember the name of, which was like 2020 or something. They had footage of like that well-known site of the stacks. But anyway. Today, both sites serve as a poignant reminder of their historical significance, despite remaining largely off-limits for permanent habitation due to persistent radiation. Chernobyl's exclusion zone has evolved into an unexpected wildlife refuge, with nature reclaiming the abandoned spaces. That site attracts scientists studying radiation ecological impacts, tourists eager to understand the disaster firsthand, and even artists drawn to the haunting landscapes. Conversely, 3 Mile Island remains integrated into the surrounding community, with the region thriving safely around the inactive reactors. Educational initiatives and tours at the 3 Mile Island site serve to inform the public about nuclear safety, highlighting the advancements in regulatory oversight and engineering improvements since the 1979 incident. The legacies of these events continue to echo today, influencing debates on energy, sustainability, nuclear safety, and government transparency. They serve as vital reminders of nuclear's energy potential and peril. And I'm done.
No, you're not.
Thank you for joining us today on Timetellers. It's Renee and Dan. What year is it? I'm just kidding. I hope you've gained new insight into these critical events that shaped the world's relationship with nuclear power. Until next time, keep exploring history's stories because every moment has something important to tell us. I'm Renee. That's Dan. And you've been listening to Timetellers.
Yay.
Yay! Only 50 minutes. It's fine.
54 minutes. And I'm not going to edit anything. So it's gonna stay
that's
that way.
no. You're editing.
Why?
Because this is way too long. You can get it down to 35. Okay, bye, y'all. I'm hanging up now. Oh, my goodness. Bye.
Why are you saying bye already?